What's up everybody, this is Todd. Today we're going to be taking a look at a PvZ on Battle of the Boardwalk between Nib and Nurtio, where Nib went for a gold base into a Stargate and into a lot of gateways for attacks. And I'm going to explain some of the different ways you can use this build order and how to do it very well, with also describing the starting build order and when you need to get your stuff at the right time. So let's get it started. Nib is on the top right hand side, and we're going to be starting right off the bat to write exactly what it does in terms of build order. So 13 out of 15, this is your standard timing. You're going to rally your Nexus to ramp and make a pylon at the top corner, then send probe across the map. Let's see, it's a pretty long message. So I think I'm gonna do that. Yeah. The notes thing is experimental, by the way. Like, if I find a better way to do it, I'll do it differently. But for now, it's gonna be like that. One thing that I won't write, but I will keep mentioning, is that you guys need to make probes continuously, and most of the timings and times that you will make and do stuff is at a certain amount of probes. I could use timestamps as well, but I think probes is more accurate because it helps people from multiple leagues, as will this build as well. So 15 out of 20, 17 out of 23. Send probe to gold base. And usually after doing that, by the way, yeah, you use your chrono boost on probes. Clearly there is nothing else to do here at this point. I won't write that down. So Nib scouts, and what does he see? He sees an extractor into a spawning pool. So he sees that there is no super quick pull, there is no hatchery first, anything like that. One thing that I want to talk about here is that you can time speed basically perfectly. Link speed, and I'm going to make a note for this as well, I think too. Link speed research time is 79 seconds. So I want you guys to kind of have that written, like it's just a random fact in the middle of these notes, because you guys need to remember that. It's very, very important, because you can basically time it perfectly when you scout like this, because you see the amount of gas that's being mined. Obviously, it takes 100 gas for Zerg to be able to start metabolic boost, and you can time that at ease. I will go back a little bit. I'm gonna write down that gateway timing. He's on 19 out of 23. You start the Nexus. Make Nexus on the gold base. And then it's 19 out of 23. You make the gates 2 before you make a 20th probe. Then gate at ramp, with a gap between pylon. I'm not sure if that's the right phrasing. Maybe it's yeah, across from the pylon or something. You guys get it, hopefully. I think, yeah, you can do this roll on both sides, by the way. So what does Nib do now? He saw the extractor into pull. I think he might have checked the natural, and now he checks the gold base, sees that there is no gold base. And then on 20 and 21, 20 out of 20, I will put both 20, 21 out of 23. Gas 1 and 2. That's when you will take those. In the meantime, he keeps on making probes. You see that energy is starting to add up a little bit. He could actually technically chrono boost now, but he's not doing it just yet. Here he had a follow-up scout. I want to go up, back up, see what he saw exactly here in terms of that. Yeah, here he checks the gold, sees that it's not there, so it's either a hatchery here or maybe somewhere on the map, which obviously he will have to follow up scout. He even checks around this base here. It's very surprising in a way that when the opponent doesn't get damn, I missed it again. When the opponent doesn't get the gold base, so you want to be extra careful, right? There could be a hatchery near him and some sort of roach attack coming. So he checks a little bit everywhere because of that, even before seeing that there was no gold base. So now he's gonna come back. And I guess it's Nib, so he doesn't really need to check. But if he had come up here, you would have seen that speed just started. You see? 2 seconds ago. And I guess you can kind of time it, like seeing just the build order. But like I said, speed is 79 seconds. 79 seconds is what? Is 1 minute and 20 seconds minus 1 second. So if the opponent starts it, in this game he started it at 1 minute 44, then you can do plus 1 minute, that's 2 minutes 44, and then you add 20 seconds, that's 3 minutes 04, but then you remove 1 second, so 3 minutes 03. So usually when you see an opener with gas into pool, speed will finish at 3 minutes 03, 04, 05, something like that. So time the speed, usually with gas pool around 303 to 305. And usually by the what you will want to do is by the time that speed is finished, you want to make sure you're sealed. So on in your main base here, it's going to be very easy, but you can apply that on every map. Yeah, 22 out of 23, sorry, you get a second pylon in main. In main, but like don't necessarily put it like, you know, at the back here where you can build a lot, or at the front. Just put it like back there. You can build a lot around this. You can get quite a few buildings. On the gases in the first place, he does 2+2, but then kind of fixes it into 3+3. And now we have 25 out of 31 Cybercore. And he starts a Zealot because of the build order, right? If you saw double hatchery or something like that and you know you're super safe, you don't need that Zealot. But now, Nib even sees Links coming. So I'm not going to write that down. Like, obviously, if you do see Links coming, you're going to start a Zealot. Like, it depends on what you scouted. If you didn't scout Quick Pull and Extractor, then you don't need maybe to get that Zealot. You can just go straight into an Adept. But the safer version of this build, like if you play, I don't know, against somebody that you feel might cheese you, definitely go for that Zealot. I guess it's going to make you extra safe. So as soon as the gold base finishes, what does Nib do? He recalls a lot of probes. I think that's 8. Recall 8 probes to gold when finished. And then start making probes from the gold base and keep making them in the main base. So I like that a lot. Nib blocks the links away, gets his Zealot out, puts it in position, cancels the pylon. And now, immediately when Cybercore finishes, what does he do? When Cybercore finishes, Stargate plus Warpgate. So we do get Warpgate. This is an early build, guys. Maybe one day we'll get there with the Roti tutorials, but not today. Today is just gonna be with our friend Niblet. So you see, consistent pro production here is the key. Even, I would say, even if you end up dying here somehow to some builds, just train your pro production to get better, because top players, they rarely miss a beat with the pro production. Only if you get all in, clearly you need to cut. But now Nib, I think he has a pretty good idea of what could hit him, and he gets just exactly enough of everything. Then start an Adept. Actually, I will add that to the previous line. Plus Adept. You could get a Stalker as well if you wanted to, but I think an Adept is a lot more solid. I would say the lower the league you're in, maybe the more passive you should play, because macroing and also microing at the same time across the map with Adepts is going to be very hard. Whereas if you multitask and speed is very good, definitely go for some of these Adepts to try and kill some drones or even force more units. It's always key in playing against Zergs. And then we have at 37 out of 46, we got the third pylon on the gold base, but look at the placement. It's so perfect. It's right here so that a shield battery could be made in a good spot, and he could go for multiple gates here to really block that off. Like if he made the pylon here, then he could have made the gates here, but then it's far away from the middle line. So now by putting it here, he can put multiple gates here and a shield battery in the middle line. So it's just a brilliant positioning here, I think, by Nib. So I definitely would use that if you guys play Protoss and play on this map against Zerg. So 37 out of 46. Third pylon on gold base, placed to wall plus shield battery. I don't think I will be writing down, by the way, like, you know, the build order throughout the end of the game. It's just the starting build order, I think, is very important. But from this point onwards, what's going to be important is to basically defend both locations, make sure you don't get cheesed. Obviously, like, Nurture didn't go for a gold base, so his second hatchery is much closer to your base. So if you wanted to make units, you could make your life very difficult here. Having an adept gives a lot of vision, and I think it's part of why Nib goes for that. Okay, now, when Stargates finishes, make Oracle, and then 46 out of 54 is when warp gate halfway, make +2 gates in main. You see, warp gate is about halfway, so these are gonna line up pretty well. 46 seconds for a gate, and on this there is a bit over 46, so it's better if the gates finish earlier. Obviously you can still chrono boost that as well if like somehow you feel like you're getting rushed, like right now. But also the priority would be to re-wall. And shield battery was actually started a bit earlier. I'm gonna write down exactly when, even prior to making these gates. Yeah, 41 out of 54. Shield battery in second base mineral line. I'm gonna write second base instead of gold base because I feel like this is applicable on more maps than just this one, but obviously it depends on the wall that you have going up at your naturals. So I'll just write second base in case like we can kind of really imprint that in our brain and maybe use it in different scenarios. So after the first adept, Nib gets a second adept, and from this point onwards, I even write like in the notes that he's getting an oracle, but this is what I love about this build order, guys. You can do almost any build from there. If you wanted to go for something like 5 Phoenixes into Colossus, Void Race into Charge Lots, you can do anything that you want, because you're always going to get these extra gates anyway. You're always going to wall here. You can go into anything you want. Even if you want, you can drop down a Robo here and take quickly to, I don't know, Immortals, Colossus, Disruptors on one gate. Now, I really feel like this is important to note, is that one of the best ways to play on this map, not just because there is the threat of a gold base, but because like if you don't play very aggressive against Zerg, it's going to be hard to do well against them, is to play with a lot of gateways and use the mobility of the prism and the strength of the gateway units. So what we're going to rely on here a lot of the time is a couple Stargate units into a lot of gates with prisms and being aggressive. So Nib, I'm going to write this down actually first, those gateways here. After getting the first oracle, he gets a second one. I'm not gonna write that down because I feel like it's up to you guys what you make out of the Stargates. But clearly, I would say make 2 to 3 units. Sometimes maybe you can go like 1 Void Ray, and then make nothing else and just go full all in with some gateway units and catch the Zerg off guard. Because still remember, like the Stargate, it was spotted by Nurture, so he's always gonna, or like by the Zerg. So he's always gonna get spores. So if you can get a Zerg to make 3 spores and you make only like say like 1 Void Ray that kills 2 overlords, you've already kind of achieved something. You could do a follow-up like 7 or 8 gates charge lot and kill him, because he's also not going to be able to see it if you open Void Ray, because you take out these 2 overlords. So that's also one of the builds you could do. I think I need to write down the timing on these gases on the natural. That was shortly after the 2 gates. Yeah, 46 out of 46. Then 2 gases on second base. That's a very important part of the build order. And then shortly after that, there is going to be 2 more additional gateways, even 3 here, to wall off that location. And this is the beautiful thing. You can almost always expect Zerg to be taking down these rocks here and going for some sort of attack. These get subbed just on time to stop that, so it's beautifully executed by Nib, I think. Let's see. He started his pattern a little bit late, actually. Let's say 52 out of 54 pylon in main. Doesn't really matter, to be honest. And then 3 gates to wall off natural. Or second base, I guess. He gets 2 at first, actually. I guess he wanted to prioritize pro production. Okay, no, so he gets 2 at first. 2 gates to all of second base. Make robo in main. You always want to make your robo in the main base. Yeah, that's going to be the main point. Like, remember that gold base, once it mines out, it's not that actually that useful. Yeah, supply block here for a little bit, Nib. Actually, which happens very rarely, but can happen. 56 out of 62 Twilights. Plus 1 more gate in wall at natural. I mean, it doesn't have to be the exact build, right? If he wanted, he could have made 3 gates there and then delayed the Twilight Council. So at the end of the day, it's just like very feeling based. I'm writing down the build order as he did it exactly, but you guys can kind of differentiate. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the harass because I feel like it's a little bit irrelevant to the build order in a way. Like, as much as it's very important, again, I'm trying to make tutorials that will cater to like all different levels. Like, obviously, if you can go across the map and do some damage, do it, but the main thing that I want you guys to focus on, especially the players below diamonds or from diamond, is really to secure those bases, not die to any all-ins here. Yeah, so he fights with the oracles a little bit, does a bit of damage, and already he can warp in at depths here to make sure he can defend properly. And now we have the third base starting. So 67 out of 78, third nexus. And if you look at the saturation, it's 20 on the minerals in the main base, well over the 12 here with 15. So as soon as this nexus finishes, basically Nib will have such a huge boom in his economy. He can already transfer walkers. And Nib actually doesn't start anything from the Twilight Council that quickly because, again, he's going to get warp prisms and try to be aggressive. What's a great unit to be aggressive with at this stage in the game when there is no Hydralisks and stuff like that just yet? Archons. So he gets a very fast Templar Archives. So 69 out of 78 Templar Archives. And by now, actually, Nib hasn't made that many units. He's just a few starting units, some air units, and that's it. He made a Phoenix to hunt Overlords, but I guess he had to warp into Adepts down there to defend that location, but when you have this many gateways, you don't even need to have units out just yet or like that early, because the thing is, you have instantaneous or like close to instantaneous warp-ins. And then plus 2 gates on 69 as well. And plus 2 gates. Actually, make that plus 3. And then now is basically going to be when Nib starts on warping in more and more units. Start charge. Again, I strongly encourage you guys, like the way of my note writing is not necessarily the best. So if you guys want to write them down differently, do not hesitate to write them along the way. I don't know why Chronobu stayed here. I don't think. Maybe he thought about starting Storm, but then he realized getting Archons would be better, so he warps in 4 High Templars on the map. And look at this. This is the beautiful part. This is where, when I watched this replay, I realized that if Nib was facing a gold base, imagine what he could have done. He has 2 Oracles. It's very hard for Zerg to be fortified on every base against Oracles. Obviously you have Spores and Queens, but these guys can synergize with ground units. He's warping into Archons here, but look what he's doing. He's getting a second prism. So if Nurture at the gold base, it's all the way down there. He would have this main base, probably this one as natural. Do you see the distance between all of those bases? It's actually pretty hard to split units well enough to defend in every location at the same time. So I think Nib would want to abuse that to the maximum. Maybe even set some sort of, I don't know, stasis wall down there, block the way. As long as he dropped enough units there, he could even force field and do a big Zealot warping. Like, look at how many gates he's on. We got 3 here. And in the main base, we have in total 9 gates. I mean, that 9th one is not finished yet, but it's about to. So the one thing that Nib skipped up to this point has been Forge upgrades, but he's definitely going to work on that later. Unless you want to go for an all-in here, but I think it's more solid to, especially because you get the 3rd base. Like, if you wanted to all-in here, I would have said maybe make 1 or 2 more gates even, and don't take those gases. And just like swarm with charge loads, but Against a good Zerg that's getting roaches, he's going to be able to kite and do okay against you. So now is the time in the game where you're going to have such a strong economy that you should be starting pylons in bunches. So now you see 2 starting. Like, don't even hesitate. Like, get 4 pylons at the back of your mineral line. You know that you're about to have to warp in a lot of units. So as soon as those 2 Archons finish here, he's going to go and harass a little bit. And look at, I mean, like, Nurture is a great player, right? Look at his lair tech. How is he supposed to defend against war prisms, oracles flying around and like killing drones and stuff, other than just roaches, in which case you can just pick up, go around the map and kill stuff anyway, as long as you micro well enough. That Phoenix still putting in work. Yeah, he actually chooses to go for some links here. I think Nib wanted to make sure he doesn't get too impatient and too careless, because if you go too far forward here, you might lose your prism with the Archons, which would be very, very bad for business. So, yeah, he did start charge, remember? And now he's got 2 of the Oracles posturing here at the top, the 1 prism flying in on this side. When you see something like this, look at the Phoenix, he's on patrol. You see no Overlord. What does the Zerg see? Remember what does the Zerg see? He sees this. He doesn't see outside of like where the creep is. So you could get a sneaky warp in here. Remember that. The creep only sees so far. So now Nib sends the charge loss in the main base. Charge finished at the perfect time, by the way, for this attack. And he drops the Archons on top, which he can micro with this. I guess he could have used the Oracles, but there was Queens anyway. And in the meantime, boom. Charge loss in the natural. Remember, you can pick up at any time and leave. Make sure you don't lose any of your prisms. I think keeping the prisms alive is really what will differentiate sometimes this push from having it work to not working. Like here, Nib loses it a little bit carelessly, but he's still doing a ton of damage because Nurture had to overcommit to defending it on the main base. What was the worker count? You see, like Nib has done such a good job of keeping Nurture low on the worker count that now this attack will basically almost always do damage. His production is always so great. In the meantime, he added a forge just before starting this attack, so he's now getting +1. All charge loss has to do is get in there, do damage, trade with units, kill a couple drones here and there. If Protoss can be ahead in supply and economically, they're always going to do great. So Nib now realizes that he's done so much damage, he killed a natural base. He still has 1 Oracle across the map, this 1 Prism that's not about to be contested anytime soon. What does he do? He's like, well, all you're going to be able to do from there is make roaches. So what is great against roaches? Immortals. Gets 2 more of these robo facilities. By the way, after the 2 prisms, he started immortal production immediately, so he's about to get a second one here. He will try to make the most damage that he can here with these units that he has left over. And he knows that at this point, Nurture's economy, like you want to look at it, it's in shambles. It's below 2,000, which for Zerg is very, very bad in this case. He's got a lower worker count. So I would say, like, preserve your Archons if you can. Make sure you save your Prism, even though in this game, like, as much as Nib lost the Prism, he did so much damage that it didn't matter. And now usually is the time where, by the way, like, Nib made so many probes this game. Like, remember, while you're doing this attack, you can still make probes, so that you can keep on expanding off the back of it. Like, you see he has his nexuses on hotkey number 5. Sometimes you just swap in, you send units there, you press 5, and then you do E if you have the standard hotkeys, and then boom, that's it, that's probes in the making. Very important thing to do. If you can go up to, like, I don't know, I would say 65 plus probes, then you've done a good job. If you want to be on Nib's level, you're going to have to make even more than that. Right now he's on 68, but I think he ends up, you see, he's still making probes continuously here, as much as he prioritized the attack. And yeah, usually now is the time. I don't know if we should look at it in terms of timer, but I guess that's an okay way to look at it. A little bit after the 8th minute is usually, if you open with the gold base, look at how fast that one mines out. So that's usually the timing. Oh, I can't believe he didn't use this gate, by the way, what the hell. But yeah, that's usually the timing you're gonna want to start a 4th base, because he has so many probes. Like, the main mines out decently quick. This one is the healthiest because that's the last one he took, but he has so many probes that he's gonna mine out super fast. So this one too, you're gonna want to transfer those probes eventually. So taking the 4th base is very important here. And at the same time, see how Nib, by the way, could have kept on warping in units across the map and throwing them at the Zerg. He already did the damage he wanted to do. So what does he do? He stops warping across the maps and throwing away units. He just harasses with these that he's going to keep alive. And he warps in at home. He builds an army that he's going to want to end the game with. with the +1 on the way too. Even adds another forge. I mean, he's so far ahead at this point, like, it's just ideal. There's many things he could do. Saves the Archons here once again. That got a little dangerous here, actually. But yeah, triple Immortal production against this Zerg stuck on Roach Hydralisk. And remember, he already has charge, he already has a Templar Archive to add Charge Laws and Archons to this. And once the Immortal count reaches something like, I don't know, 6 to 8, this army just becomes so insanely scary. And remember, like, Zerg, they might get desperate here, go for something like a Spire, go for counterattacks, but you got Recall. You got Recall, you can warp in Stalkers, you're gonna have access to Archons. So Nim now finally, I think he realizes that he can put an end to this. Just because of the lead that he has in this game, really. Like, obviously, like, I'm watching a replay, we got access to all the numbers, but he's even gonna start one more game. One more base, sorry. Because he has so many probes and he can afford it, I guess. But Immortal count is at 8. I love this, by the way. When you have this many sentries, you don't need to use like a million Guardian Shields or Force Field. He sends one Hallucinated Phoenix. If he sees, like, say something like Lurkers or a massive army, he might actually choose to take it slower. But now, he sees this really small army of Roach, Hydra, and Ravager, and he's like, you know what? I'll send a Christmas package in your main base with some charge loads. Bring some of your army out of position, and in the meantime, I'll kill you on that base. Even the micro here is great, because if you look at what Nurture is doing, he attacks and then he kites. There's not much else you can do here as Zerg. He's trying to bring the Archons out of position here so that he can kill them, while the hatchery takes damage from the rest of the units, and then engage the rest and clean up. I mean, realistically, Nurture is not going to win this game. There's just too much here, but he's making the most of it. What does Nib do? He pulls back the Archons manually. He leaves the Immortals with Guardian Shield here at the front kind of by themselves to do all the damage. And he doesn't waste time even attacking this hatchery. He just kind of moves in there and kills him right off the bat. Moves back against here the Immortal. So some great lively micro here out of Nib, who just cleans up and beats Nurture in a very solid game with a very solid build, which I really think can be used so many different ways. Again, when he went for the... I think like going for the Stargate is very solid. After that, getting all the... I think 5 to 6 gates, and also adding, I would say, Robo and then Twilight. But then from there, the possibilities, like, sky is the absolute limit. Like I said, you could go for 5 Phoenixes into, I don't know, like Colossus. If you want to, you can get 1 Void Ray to clean up the Overlords, and then you do like 8 gates with charge. And you even stop mining gas. You don't even take the gases on your natural if you want to do that. There's so many builds that you can do from this that I feel like it's a beautiful opener with so many options. So I hope that you guys try out the build order. Let me know what you think about it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Make sure to leave some comments. Even send me some replays if you want to, so I can have a look at how you executed it. And I hope you guys do well on the ladder. And I'll see you next time with another tutorial.